Enough with the one song fading out and another song fading in. That's boring. It's time to be bold with the way that you edit your music. Here are 5 tips to get more creative with your video soundtrack. Let's jump on in. First, we're starting out with smooth song transitions. The first example is what you just heard in the intro, the ring out effect. Now, you've probably heard me talking about this before, but basically what you do is cut out a short piece of a song, preferably the first or last hit in a loop. Hold Alt or Option on a Mac while dragging this little piece to the layer below to duplicate it. Then you can extend our cutout, but mute the extension. Next, let's right-click to nest them both and apply the studio reverb effect to it. Choose a preset like Great Hall. Let's turn dry down to 0 and wet up to 100 so we can only hear the reverb. If the reverb isn't long enough, we can bump up decay and room size. And after the song rings out, it's a perfect time to have our next track kick in. Another thing that we can do is duplicate our reverb nest, right-click and choose Render and Replace to render our ring out effect into an audio file where we can see the waveforms. Then hit Ctrl or Command+R to open up the clip speed window. This is where we can change the speed of any video or audio, but what I want to do here is reverse the speed. This will turn our ring out effect into a riser, which is perfect for creating tension before our next impact. So let's place this right before the second track comes in and play. How about we take this to the next level? So I've switched up both the songs for this example and created the same setup as the ring out effect. But instead of adding a reverb to this nest, I'm going to add the analog delay effect instead. And this is used for creating an echo effect. Let's open up the settings, bring dry down to 0 and wet up to 100 like we did with the reverb. And if I hit play, the echo is pretty short, so bumping up feedback is going to fix that. Adjusting delay will change the speed of our echo. Have a listen. But instead of just choosing a random speed here, I want the echo to repeat with the same speed as our second track. So I could do this by ear, just by listening and just keep adjusting the delay parameter, but I have a better idea. I downloaded this track from Musicbed, and here it clearly says the beats per minute of the song, which is how we measure speed in music. Back in the delay effect, you can see that the speed is measured by milliseconds. That means I can just look up a BPM to millisecond converter on Google, choose a site, and put in the BPM of the song, and here I'll get a couple speed options in milliseconds. If you don't know how to count music, don't worry. Just remember, the higher the number, the slower the echo will repeat. Let's put in 300 and let's hear it. It's pretty slow, but when I play it together with the song, you can hear that the timing is in sync. Let's choose a smaller number. Once I'm happy, I can render and replace it. Let's also keyframe the volume to go up, and we can use this as a build-up to our second track. We can also combine this with a ring out effect. So that was a little bit complicated. So what if we try something else, like a false buildup? So what this means is finding a part in the song that is building up to something. And then when that something arrives, we hit them with a song switch. So the key to making this work is zooming in here on the waveforms and cut right at the start of an impact. And by the way, if you don't see the waveforms, you can enable it with this wrench icon. Then we want to move this and make sure it hits right when the listeners expect the impact to come on our first track. Or the simplest way, just fading one song into the other. But you have to do it cleverly because it can be pretty boring, but depending on the track you choose, this method could be perfect. So for this first song, you can hear that the music has a part that's pretty atmospheric. So for the second song, I chose a minimal track here that slowly builds at the start. When I put these two tracks together, I can drag this fade handle to crossfade the two songs together, and so now let's talk about choosing the right song for your video, because sometimes choosing music can make or break the vibe. I mean, listen to this. Would you say that it fits the scene? I'm going to show you my process for finding the right music track on Musicbed. So usually I'll change the filters to match the vibe that I need. And as for this post-apocalyptic London scene, I'm looking for something sad, atmospheric, and maybe a bit dramatic would work as well. So after going through a few tracks, this one really stands out. You can feel how sad and empty it is, but what if we switch it up and change it to nature's perspective instead? So I'll change the filter. How about carefree? I also want the song to have some woodwinds in it, so I think that will fit the nature theme. So now this scene breathes hope. It feels different. It's like we're on nature's side now. Another idea is instead of having the music be the main soundtrack, we can make the music a part of the scene, like coming from an old radio, for example. So let's find a classical piece and let's have it play from a speaker far in the distance. I found this piece called The Lark Ascending, written in the early 1900s by an English composer. How lovely. Let's use Musicbed's AI search to find similar songs to this one. And here we go! We got Beethoven! Oh, well, he's German, so I guess I can drop the accent now. So let's hear what it sounds like with sound effects. It sounds pretty good, but it doesn't feel like it's quite a part of the scene yet. So this is where audio effects in Premiere Pro can come in handy. So the first effect that we're going to use is the parametric equalizer, which lets you adjust specific frequencies of a track. Don't worry if you're confused, because I'm going to choose the radio preset. We're halfway there. All we need to do now is add some reverb so that way it feels like the sound source is far away. So for this, I'm going to use the convolution reverb effect, which is great at mimicking real-life spaces. So let's choose the distant source preset and bump up the mix by a lot, so that way we can mostly hear the reverb. And here's the result. Another good use of EQ in the reverb effect is making it sound like the music is coming from another room. So I have an example here with music and sound effects already added. To achieve this effect, let's add the parametric equalizer effect again, but instead of choosing a preset, I'll click this LP button to enable the low pass filter. This will let me cut out all the high frequencies. Here's a fun fact for you. Usually walls are great at filtering out the high frequencies, but letting low frequencies pass through. That's why if you're outside a club, you mainly hear just the bass going on in the inside, like Well, that was not a good bass imitation, but you know what I mean. So back at the equalizer, I'll drag my low pass filter to the left until it sounds right. Then let's add some reverb. I'll use the studio reverb effect this time, and I'll pick the room ambience preset, and let's lower the dry and bump up the wet, and let's hear it. Cutting to the beat of the song sounds simple, and it is often overused, which can make it sound cheap and uninspiring. As you can see from this, I had all the cuts line up to the main beat of this song, but that makes it so all the cuts have the exact same length. It's just repetitive. Let's fix that. Now it's much more exciting and interesting. What we did here was move some of the cuts to a different sound. For instance, instead of having all the cuts when the kick drum hits, I can sometimes cut to the snare sound instead. Another trick to spice it up is to have a cut happen at a more random spot, but instead you time a movement in the shot sync to the beat instead. For example, when our character turns her head. Although you still want most of the cuts to happen on the beat, it's important to think about some variety here so that way the edit can feel more interesting. Another thing we can do to keep things interesting is to have a dropout moment, which is basically cutting out the music track entirely at a moment to emphasize something. And bonus points if the dropout happens at a beat drop or an impact point in the song to divert the listener's expectations. As you can hear, after a dropout occurs, it's a good moment to switch to a different part of that song or introduce an entirely new song. For our last tip, it's time to become a DJ, baby. Oh yeah, that sounds so bright. Come on, Troy. I was trying to be Charlie XCX. Anyway, all the songs that you've heard in this video are from Musicbed, and as you can tell, their song selection is fantastic. All the tracks on Musicbed are for artist by artist, and that's why they feel so authentic and emotional. And fun fact, Musicbed actually accepts less than 1% of their submissions, so you know that they have good stuff. Since me and my team switched to Musicbed, we've been able to tell better stories and make our videos feel higher quality just because we have higher quality music. Who would have thought? So it doesn't matter if you're looking for that next pop banger to make your vlog come to life or a cinematic masterpiece for your next short film. Musicbed has it all. And we can't forget about their AI search by song feature, which is my favorite way to find the music I need. So you can give Musicbed a try by using my link below to get a 14-day free trial. And big thanks to Musicbed for sponsoring today's video. And now it's time to get back to DJ time. You want to guess the color of my undo. You wanna put it in your You can see I quite like that song. So now let's talk about remixing songs. And there's no better tool to do it with than the remix tool inside of Premiere Pro. This tool is great for making a song longer or repeating a loop. So for example, if I only want one part of the song, I can cut the start and end of that section, and with the remix tool selected, drag out the end to as long as I want, and after a few seconds, Premiere will create a longer version of that part. And if we listen to the parts that just got stitched together, it's seamless. But that's old news. What if we remix the song manually? Obviously, I won't be doing some real DJ stuff here, but to keep things spicy, what I can do is I can cut to a different part of the song sooner. So for example, for my intro here, I'm using this song that is a couple minutes long, but my intro is much shorter. So instead of throwing away all of the rest of the song here, I will cut right at the start of a new section in the track and bring it into the left here to find a spot for it to come in sooner. So what you can do is try zooming in to line up the impact so the transition is smooth. If you're not able to line it up exactly, right-click the top of the timeline and choose Show Audio Time Units. This will let us move our audio tracks more freely. I also use this trick in my Dropout example. This is what it sounded like before I remixed it. So cutting in a later part of the song just really helps make the song more interesting in a shorter time span. All right, so what if we pick a song that is kind of on a loop already and doesn't have much variety in the soundtrack? Another trick I do is press Ctrl or Command R and speed up the song a little bit. And when we do this in Premiere, the song will get pitched up a little bit, right? So I can introduce the same loop again, but it sounds faster and it's a higher pitch and it sounds like it's a newer part of the song. Yet another trick is to cut between the instrumental and the lyrical version of the song. And on Musicbed, most of the songs have an instrumental and a lyrical version. So what we can do in Premiere is line up both of these different versions and cut back and forth as you see fit. So this is great for cutting away to B-roll. For example, right now when I'm talking, there's instrumental, but then if we cut away to B-roll, Can you hear how effective that is? So music and sound is half of the picture and half of the viewing experience. So if you don't give that love, the video can feel a little bit amateur, right? If you watch back some of the greatest social media videos or even films, listen to the soundtrack. It really helps bring it to life. If any of these tricks helped you out, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and drop a musical note emoji down below. And most importantly, stay creative, especially with audio, and keep creating better videos with Gal. See you next time. Bye.